We are counting down the 10 most unhinged, illegal, and downright bizarre facts in Christmas history that will permanently ruin your childhood memories and prove that chaos is the oldest holiday tradition of all. Your artificial Christmas tree is technically a toilet appliance. Your favorite carol is about illegal street racing, and the original greeting cards feature dead birds. Are you ready to face the dark side of holiday cheer? Let's ruin some memories. Subscribe and join us on the side of history that schools don't teach. Number 10. The Toilet Brush Christmas Tree. You might need to sit down for this one, because the history of your beloved artificial Christmas tree has a genuinely foul origin story that most people conveniently choose to ignore. That centerpiece of holiday cheer is technically a giant festive bathroom appliance. The very first mass-produced fake trees were not created by some whimsical decoration genius in the North Pole. They were created in the 1930s by the Addis Brush Company, a German-American manufacturer famous for making heavy-duty toilet scrubbers. The dirty surplus. The manufacturer realized they had a massive surplus of two things: stiff animal hair bristles used for scrubbing power and large vats of green dye. The unholy fusion. With stunning efficiency and zero regard for holiday sentiment, they simply fed these materials into the exact same twisting machines they used to create toilet brushes. They dyed the bristles green and twisted them into a cone shape. The scam. They cleverly marketed this creation as the silver pine to make it sound luxurious. But in reality, the vintage tree your grandmother cherishes is a literal, oversized scrub brush designed to clean porcelain, repurposed for your living room. This is arguably the most successful marketing scam in the history of home decor. You are celebrating the birth of Jesus Christ by placing presents under a biological monument to bathroom sanitation. The very history of the fake tree confirms that, at its core, the holiday spirit is just a brilliant piece of deceptive advertising. Number 9. Jingle Bells, the illegal drag race song. You have probably hummed Jingle Bells 1,000 times, and you're living a historical lie, because this iconic song was never intended for Christmas at all. It was actually a scandalous anthem for what amounted to 19th century snow-covered drag racing. The Thanksgiving origin. The song was written in 1857 by James Lord Pierpont for a Thanksgiving church service, originally titled One Horse Open Sleigh. The scandalous lyrics. Forget family gatherings and caroling. The original lyrics were shockingly scandalous for a church setting. The song wasn't about festive sleigh rides. It was about high-speed sleigh races in the snow and a dangerous pursuit to pick up girls by showing off your fast horse. The lyrics described chaotic, high-speed crashes, flipping over in the snow, and loudly mocking people who drove slower horses. It was essentially the most popular high-octane celebration of speed and reckless youth in the Victorian era, a true folk song about competitive, high-stakes sleigh driving. It only became associated with Christmas decades later, simply because the melody was so wildly catchy that people refused to stop singing it once Thanksgiving was over. The song survived purely on the strength of its infectious rhythm, proving that a catchy tune cares absolutely nothing about calendar logic or moral content. So the next time you hear that famous melody, just remember you're listening to a celebration of dangerous, horse-powered street racing. Number 8. Oliver Cromwell's War on Christmas. We complain about a war on Christmas today, but in the 17th century it was a literal, brutal war waged by the government of England. Oliver Cromwell and his Puritan Parliament decided that the holiday was too much fun, and therefore it must be outlawed. The Puritan Prohibition. Cromwell's Puritans viewed the traditional feasting, heavy drinking, decorating, and merrymaking as heathen, pagan disgraces that distracted from serious, solemn worship. In 1647, Parliament officially passed a law banning the holiday completely for over a decade. The Fun Police. This was no mere suggestion, it was a total lockdown on joy enforced by the state. Soldiers were ordered to patrol the streets of London, physically seizing roast beef, minced pies, and other festive foods from the citizens. They arrested anyone caught cooking a festive meal or singing a carol. Treason by minced pie. To be caught eating a forbidden minced pie was effectively to be considered an enemy of the state. The celebration was so deeply ingrained in the culture, however, that citizens often rebelled. In some cities, pro-Christmas riots broke out, with people fighting in the streets just to be able to have a glass of ale and some traditional food. This shows that politicians ruining everything is a time-honored tradition that goes back hundreds of years, and no one was safe from the Puritan fun police during the 1650s. The holiday was only officially reinstated after the monarchy was restored in 1660, proving that sometimes even politics must eventually bow to the people's desire for a nice roast dinner. Number 7. The Icelandic bloodthirsty fashion police. If you think receiving a lump of coal in your stocking is a harsh punishment, you clearly haven't met the Icelandic holiday monster known as Jólakötturinn, or the Yule Cat. This is not a cute, fluffy kitten. It is a gigantic, bloodthirsty beast towering over houses, and it prowls the snowy countryside on Christmas Eve with one terrifying specific dietary requirement: the deadly dress code. The legend states that the Yule Cat eats anyone who has not received a single new item of clothing for Christmas. It is literally the most aggressive and lethal fashion police in the history of human folklore. A weapon of capitalism. This bizarre, terrifying tale was not invented to teach kindness. It was a shrewd, terrifying psychological weapon invented by medieval farmers to scare their workers into processing the autumn wool harvest faster before the holidays. If you missed your deadline, you had a wardrobe malfunction that resulted in you becoming cat food for a gigantic, murderous feline with absolutely no patience. The Yule Cat served as the most effective form of holiday-themed labor control ever conceived. It reminds us that some of the darkest, most terrifying legends were created simply to ensure a successful business cycle, and that a new pair of socks could literally save your life.
Number 6. The Dead Bird Christmas Card. If you feel like modern Christmas cards are boring or too generic, you need to look at what the Victorians were sending, because their idea of holiday cheer was pure, unadulterated nightmare fuel that would terrify any modern child. The Victorian aesthetic. While we associate the Victorian era with elegance, they were also obsessed with morbidity and Gothic aesthetics. A very popular and completely baffling design in the 19th century featured a dead robin lying stiffly on its back, sometimes accompanied by the cheerfully ominous caption, "May yours be a joyful Christmas." Grim humor. Historians offer a few grim explanations. It may have been a dark joke about the death of the old year, or perhaps a play on words, as British postmen were commonly nicknamed robins due to their red uniforms. In that context, the card might have been a macabre visual greeting from your mail carrier. Gothic greetings. Either way, it is an incredibly grim, unsettling tradition. Nothing says happy holidays quite like a stiff, frozen bird corpse delivered by the postman. It proves that the Victorians were the original goth teenagers who were obsessed with death, decay, and the macabre, even during the most supposedly joyful time of the year. The fact that this was a mass-marketed, highly desirable form of holiday greeting confirms that the Victorians possessed a twisted sense of humor and a deep comfort with the imagery of death that is completely absent from modern holiday sensibilities. Number 5. The Eggnog Riot of 1826. In 1826, the administration at the prestigious West Point Military Academy made a massive tactical error that nearly ended with an all-out mutiny. They declared that alcohol was banned for the annual Christmas party, completely underestimating the holiday spirit of armed, disciplined cadets. The smuggling operation. The cadets, refusing to be deprived of their holiday booze, smuggled several gallons of illegal whiskey into the North Barracks. Their goal was simple: to make a dangerously supercharged, extra-lethal eggnog. The resulting party was less a celebration and more a small-scale mutiny. It devolved into absolute chaos involving sword fights, smashing windows, pistols fired into the hallways, and brutal knockout brawls between the drunken cadets and the superior officers who tried to stop the drunken festivities. National security threat. By Christmas morning, a staggering 1/3 of the cadets were implicated in the riot, including a young cadet named Jefferson Davis, who would later become the president of the Confederacy. It turns out that nothing threatens national security and military discipline quite like depriving armed, stressed college kids of their holiday booze and expecting them to simply go to sleep quietly. The incident remains a terrifying reminder that even the most disciplined soldiers, when fueled by homemade, illicit eggnog, can lose all sense of order. Number 4. Mistletoe, the poop plant. Nothing says Christmas romance like puckering up under a parasitic plant named after feces, because the word mistletoe is actually derived from two Anglo-Saxon words that ruin the magic completely. The etymology of romance. The words are mistle, meaning dung or excrement, and ton, meaning twig. The biological truth. This foul name exists because ancient people observed that the plant would suddenly sprout on tree branches exactly where birds had left their droppings. Mistletoe actually spreads exclusively through sticky seeds that have passed through a bird's digestive system, landed on a branch, and germinated. So, when you're trying to steal a romantic kiss at a Christmas party, just remember the scientific and linguistic reality. You are standing underneath a biological monument to avian excrement that is slowly strangling the tree it's attached to. Suddenly, the holiday magic feels a lot less enchanting and a lot more sanitary. The next time you're under that parasitic bundle, you'll think less of love and more of digestive transit. Maybe just stick to a firm handshake or a friendly wave next time to avoid the poop twig overhead. Number 3. The medieval beating day. If you thought receiving a bad gift was painful, try living in medieval England, where they celebrated a delightful holiday tradition on December 28th, known as Childermas, or more directly, Beating Day. Aggressive religious context. On this morning, parents would drag their children out of bed and actually beat them with sticks or willow rods to remind them of the suffering of the innocent children killed by King Herod in the biblical story, the Massacre of the Innocents. The twisted logic. The parents' twisted logic was that the physical pain would help the serious religious lessons stick in their memory more effectively. Furthermore, bringing this bad luck, the physical assault, upon the children early in the holiday season would supposedly secure good luck and spiritual fortune for the rest of the year. This tradition brings a whole new horrifying meaning to tough love. Your parents literally woke you up with a physical assault just to provide an aggressive, painful context for a religious story. The fact that a widespread tradition involved the scheduled, mandatory physical punishment of children for religious teaching purposes reveals a level of grim psychological conditioning that is almost unimaginable in modern times. Number 2. The Feast of the Ass. We usually think of church services as solemn, quiet, and respectful affairs. But in medieval France and Spain, they celebrated something called the Feast of the Ass, which was exactly as chaotic and unhinged as it sounds. The honored guest. This was an official, sanctioned celebration honoring the donkey that supposedly carried the Virgin Mary and baby Jesus to safety in Bethlehem. The unruly mass. The ceremony itself got completely out of control. Priests and parishioners would march a live donkey right up to the altar in the middle of the church. During the Mass, the priest was required to turn to the congregation and pray with a loud, drawn-out hee-haw instead of the usual Latin prayers. Holy chaos.
The best, most chaotic part was that the entire congregation was required to bray hee-haw back at him, creating a holy praying contest of farm animal noises instead of saying amen. The Mass was accompanied by singing inappropriate songs, excessive drinking, and generally turning the church into a stable. Church leadership eventually banned the Feast of the Ass because, unsurprisingly, having a confused farm animal as the guest of honor and screaming like donkeys sent the completely wrong theological message to the believers. It stands as history's greatest example of a religious service devolving into a pure, chaotic farm animal noise party. Number 1. The Christmas Truce of 1914. You might think the idea of enemies pausing a global war to play soccer is a sentimental, cheesy Hollywood myth, but in 1914, the Christmas truce actually happened, and it remains the most surreal, terrifyingly human moment in military history. A spontaneous peace. On the frozen, corpse-ridden battlefields of World War I, amid the mud and machine gun fire, German soldiers suddenly started singing Silent Night and held up small Christmas trees above their trenches. Instead of shooting them, the British and French soldiers sang back. Slowly, thousands of men defied direct, absolute orders and climbed out into no man's land. The unthinkable celebration. They shook hands, exchanged cigarettes and small gifts, shared food and pudding, and, unbelievably, literally played soccer games on the exact ground where they had been trying to kill each other hours before. It was a spontaneous, overwhelming outbreak of humanity that briefly brought peace to the bloodiest conflict the world had ever known. The fear of the generals. This moment of unsanctioned peace absolutely terrified the generals in high command. They feared the soldiers would realize they had more in common with the enemy than with their own commanders. To ensure the men remembered they were supposed to hate each other, the generals immediately ordered heavy artillery barrages the very next day. The Christmas truce proves that the only thing the military truly feared more than the enemy was the dangerous, spontaneous outbreak of peace itself. It stands as history's greatest, most powerful, and most tragic Christmas memory in history. We have just covered the 10 reasons why Christmas history was a fever dream, but I know the internet is a darker place than any history book, so I am challenging you in the comments. What is a disturbing or obscure holiday fact that was actually too dark or too weird even for this list? I want to see if you can shock me. Subscribe right now if you want to keep destroying your ignorance.